everybody. Welcome to Bestie Book Reviews. I'm here with my bestie, Mandy.
And I'm here with my bestie, Jessica.
So today we have a fun video for you guys. We have romance series to binge read. So before we get started, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We are still doing our Road to 1K giveaway, and we are still giving away Elsie Silver's Flawless. Give me a break. We've done a lot of videos today. Elsie Silver's Flawless. It is signed by Elsie. And it is in her discreet cover, which is just absolutely gorgeous. So when we hit 250 subscribers, we will be giving that away. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram. All that is linked below. You get an extra entry if you are following us on Instagram when we get there. All right. So we have chosen 5 series each. And I know Mandy and I have done, we've tried really hard to find series that aren't talked about a lot, series that we personally loved and binge read that are not extremely popular, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we wanted to give you, like, we could pull the popular ones out. We've all got them. We've all done the ACOTAR binge read, okay? But we have other ones that we think you guys would like a lot more, or just like in general. So let's do those. Would you like to start?
Okay.
Okay.
Are you going to time me?
Oh, do I? Oh, I probably have to. No, I trust you.
Okay. Well, Jessica, after you did that intro about how we've binged them and loved them, I have a small confession. 2 of the series that I'm going to talk about, I have not actually finished all the books.
That's okay. Like, some of them are just not finished in general. But 90% of mine are finished, I think.
My first one is one that I'm currently binging right now, so that's why I want to recommend it. It's The Morgan Brothers by Lauren Rowe. And this obviously features the Morgan brothers plus their like honorary brother Xander in one of the books. So each book focuses on a different brother. Lauren says you can start with hero or captain because they run kind of in the same timeline. I would highly recommend probably reading hero and just kind of following the order she has them in, like hero, then captain. So hero is about Colby. He is a firefighter who is injured pretty badly while he's fighting a fire. And Lydia is his physical therapist. Mm-hmm. I will say, this is one of the only books I have read where I was bawling hysterically in the prologue. Like tears just going down my face. I can actually remember the exact place I was when I was reading this book when this happened. That's how impactful it was. So incredibly good. Book 2 is called Captain. This is Ryan and Tessa, or T-Rod. They have some crazy chemistry together. It is a lot of fun. They actually don't really like each other, and they're like, because they're mad at each other about some stuff, and they're like tearing each other's clothes off, and he's like, "You're a psycho," and she's like, "Well, you're a prick," and like they're just ripping each other's clothes. It was fantastic. Then we have like a bodyguard one, and we continue to follow all of those. We also see a little bit of Reed Rivers in The Captain, and he has his own trilogy, which I definitely really enjoyed reading Captain after having read Reed's books, because there's some interactions with Reed in there and Tessa, and like Ryan's reaction is a lot of fun. So this is one where there's definitely some deeper things that are happening, but it's also a lot of fun. Like, the Morgan brothers are a family that I would love to be a part of. Like, they seem like they truly love each other, but they're all kind of just a little bit out there a little bit.
I love their banter and the way they tease each other and the nicknames they come up with for each other. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So my first series is also really fun, but it's fun in a whole different way.
Ooh.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a Mandy and Jessica video if Jessica wasn't talking about Grace McGinty. So I have the Newly Undead, or the Dark River Days is the series, but it's 4 books. I only have the first 3, but the first book is Newly Undead in Dark River. This follows the same person throughout all 4 books, and it is a completed series. She actually just put out the 4th book, I think this past summer or just before the holidays, we got the fourth book. We didn't know there was going to be a fourth book, and surprise, there was a fourth book. So the third book of this series actually wraps up the series, and then the fourth book is set like a handful of years. I think it's like 10 years later. So I have not yet read the fourth book. It's actually on order and on its way here, but I haven't read it yet. So this follows Micah. She's backpacking in Alberta, and she wakes up in a storm drain, basically, and doesn't remember how she got there. Her backpack's nearby, but like she doesn't know how she got into this weird storm drain. And so when she like wakes up in the storm drain, she realizes there's a sign above her head that says, you know, welcome to Dark River. That's the name of the town. That's where we get the Dark River days. I almost said welcome to Storybrooke, because that's what I think of when I think of the show Once Upon a Time, when they talk about the little town in Canada. Anyhow, so she moseys on into this town and into the diner, and she looks like she's been murdered. I mean, that's really what she looks like. She looks like death, and she's starving. And like the whole town is in the diner, and they turn and they look at her and they're like, oh my gosh, what is going on here? And then she realizes that she's hungry, but food is not what she's hungry for. So this whole town is a town full of vampires. But they don't feed off of humans. They have these rules that you can't kill a human. You're not supposed to feed off of a human. And you know, there's rules to them living in Dark River. But the thing is somebody murdered her. Somebody turned her, which is a huge no-no. And it's somebody who is a resident of this town. And so you have that mystery of who and why and how. So this is also a reverse harem. So I do have to say that you do get a handful of really hot guys that are all, they're not all vampires. There's a couple. There's one, he's British, and he loves that rope tying thing, you know, the way they would tie you up in all the ropes and the red ropes, and that's hot. One is the sheriff or chief, or I can't remember what he is, but he's the police personnel there in town. One is completely psychotic. He is a sociopath and then some. It's great. It's fun. Then she has a wolf shifter, and another one who is her blind best friend who comes along eventually. So anyhow, that is Dark River Days, and I love it. I binged them while camping last year in a weekend. It was like 2 days, and I had them all read. I was like, done. Couldn't put them down. Grace's writing is just fun, and there's witty moments, but it can be serious. It's so good. So yeah.
You always talk about how much you love her witty writing.
I do love her witty writing. She comes up with the best one-liners where I'm like, where did she come up with that? And then I want to remember them and use them in my everyday life, but I always forget. So.
On that note. Okay, my next series is The Nashville Neighborhood, and it is a wild, wild neighborhood to live in. So this is one of the books from that series, The Frat Boy. This is by Nikki Sloan. So we start off with The Doctor, and this is an age gap romance and a, let's see, like the doctor's son's girlfriend. Yeah. They break up, and then she becomes the doctor's girlfriend. So that is a wild story there. Then we have The Pool Boy, which is absolutely one of my favorite books. It's that reverse age gap romance. We have The Architect, which was just bizarre, in my opinion. Some people might really like it, but it was very bizarre. Then we have The Frat Boy, which is basically just reading porn, because they're porn stars basically in this. They become porn stars. And then she also has a new book coming out in this series called The Good Girl, which will be out in August, which Preston, who is from book one, the doctor's son, it's going to be his story finally, because, you know, he kind of had that heartbreak. And so everybody's kind of like it's all in the same neighborhood. So some of them know each other. You see some of the characters pop back up. You can definitely read them all as a standalone. Occasionally there's some characters like that are together, like in the book. So if you haven't read their book, you wouldn't know their story yet, but you could 100% read these without having read any of the other books. But it's fun if you just read them in order too. But it is definitely a very wild neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. I always thought that The Pool Boy was the first in that series.
No, it's the doctor.
Yeah, I always thought the doctor was the second. I get them mixed up apparently, but I don't think it
Yeah.
really matters which order you read them in.
Because in the Pool Boy, she's neighbors with the doctor, and she makes reference to like, well, if people are going to talk about me, like,
Yeah.
he's done the same thing over
He's
there.
done it himself next door. Yes. That neighborhood is quite wild.
So, and then in the Pool Boy, it's her like really close friend's son.
Yeah. Yeah. All sorts of weird going on.
And then the architect is their neighbor, and there's like a nosy neighbor that's like part of the HOA that's always coming after all of them.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. I mean, there's all sorts of debauchery going on there.
Yeah, but she gets upset about like your trash can being out too early.
Oh yeah, not yeah. The porn filming. No.
Oh, she gets after that too, but they're trying to keep it on the down low.
Okie dokie. So the next series that I have is actually a series that I'm in the middle of binging right now. I've been reading it, off and on all week. That is the Perfectly Imperfect series by Neva Altai. So this is a mafia romance, but because they're perfectly imperfect, everybody has, like, all of your main characters have something that makes them imperfect. So in the first book, we have Roman and Nina. Roman has been in an accident. He was in an explosion. He was set up. He is the head of the Bratva, and somebody sabotaged him, and there was this bomb that went off, and he's in a wheelchair because his knee is like completely shattered, and they don't know if he'll ever be able to walk again fully. And he wants to take the attention off of the fact that he is in a wheelchair, because that makes him weak. And so there is a marriage arrangement between him and Nina. Nina's dad owes the Bratva like $7 million, and so she agrees to marry him to wash away her father's debt. And so this is their story. And then in the second book, it is Painted Scars, and this is Mikhail and Bianca. And Bianca is a there's so much glare. These covers don't work with the lights. Bianca is a ballerina, and she's been injured. And so she's leaving the ballet. She is like a prima ballerina for the, big time. Like, she's made it. She's a principal dancer. And Mikhail has been through something extremely traumatic, and he has a patch over his right eye, and he has scars all over his body. He doesn't like to be touched. He doesn't like to touch anybody. When he has his, one night stand situations, as girls that he goes to, they know that no clothes come off of him at all. And so this is their story. It's an arranged marriage. She is a part of she is a part of the Italian mafia, and they're trying to form a merger or pact there. And so these two get married off, and this is their story. And then the third one that I'm in, there's I think the seventh book in the series is just about to come out, but I am in the third one, and I'm devouring these. I plan to have all of them finished by the end of next week. But that is Hidden Truths by, obviously, Neva Altai. And this is Angelina and Sergey. And Sergey is like the ultimate super soldier. He was taken when he was 14 and made into this black ops super soldier. And so, but because of that, his brain, it doesn't function like the rest of us, and he can snap at any minute and kill anybody and think it's perfectly okay as long as he's protecting somebody else. And then you have him discovering Angelina, who's part of the cartel. Her dad is the head of the cartel, but he has been murdered, and the person who murdered him is forcing her to marry him. So they sneak her old nanny sneaks her off into a truck and across the border with a bunch of drugs that is discovered or intercepted by the Russian Bratva. And she's on there, and she's starving, and she's very close to death when he finds her, and he takes her back to his place. So this is their story. And so I'm really excited. The fourth one is one that is really talked about. It is a huge age gap. And I just finished the third book today, or late last night, and I'm dying to finish recording so I can go read the fourth book. So tell me about your next book.
Okay. My next series is On the Ropes by Ali Martinez. And this is a short series. There's 3 books and a novella. And so the novella kind of sets up some other people that kind of go in this series, but it's really not necessary to enjoy the series. So in book 1, we have Till, who has just, I mean, he's had a really rough life. His parents just suck. They're really not there for him. Dad kind of just walks out and doesn't care, and mom's just really checked out herself. And so he's been responsible for keeping his 2 little brothers out of foster care and trying to keep them on the straight and narrow as best he can. And every night he sneaks out and crawls into an abandoned apartment building into a window where his bestie, Eliza, hangs out. And they've been doing this since they were like 13 years old. So they've been best friends. They've each had some girlfriends and boyfriends in there. But eventually we get to a point where the 2 of them start to realize, like, oh, wow, we're like have feelings. And I think Eliza's always really had those feelings for Till, but Till, Eliza's like his escape from reality, and he doesn't think he can combine both worlds. But the other thing that's happening is Till is an MMA fighter, and he is losing his hearing. It's a gradual thing that's happening to him, and there's really not a lot that can be done for this. And so what really got me is the back of the book says that every night before she falls asleep, she lets out a sigh. And I think that's the thing I'll miss most. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. And so I just had to read the series after that. Book 2 focuses on Flint, Till's younger brother, who is paralyzed in book 2. And it focuses on him trying to overcome some of those things. And I really don't want to give anything else away about that story because you really have to read these. They say they can be standalone, but I think you have to read them in order. And then book 3 is Corey, the other younger brother. So really, really strong series with great characters as they're overcoming some pretty like tough obstacles that life has thrown their way.
Okay. Yay. All right, my next series. So this is by Haley Feynman, and this is The Prophecy of the Sisters. These are 4 books. This is a fantasy romance situation here. So there's been this prophecy. I'll show you the books here in a second. There's been this prophecy. There's this world that's parallel to ours. And in that world, each like section of the world is a little bit different and ran by a different king or ruler, what have you. And so there is a prophecy in their world that there will be 4 sisters who are born of the same parents who look nothing alike, and that they will be brought into their world. And we're not sure if they're going to be like the most powerful women ever, or something to that effect, but you don't know if their powers are going to be used for good or for evil. And so that's where we start this book, this book series. And so you have these 4 sisters who are originally, I think they were like originally from Oregon, and they're all over the country. They all have different colored hair. They all look just a little bit different. They're just definitely different from each other. And so the first book is Sybil's book, and she gets sucked into this parallel world, and her husband is like a medieval type king in his land, and he insists on marrying her because he's got a witch. He's heard the prophecy. He knows what this is. He realizes she is that person, and so he forces her to marry him. It's great. I love it when they get forced to marry. So you have a king here in this one, and then we go to the next sister's book. This one's actually my absolute favorite. This is Liv's book. And her husband or her man she gets sent back to is a Viking warrior. Yes, I am all over this book like stink on a stick because it was hot. It was very hot. Then you have the next sister who is brought over. And this is my second runner-up book to this one, to the first one. This one is Birdie's book, and she gets sent to basically Frontierland. And so she gets, this is Bride of the Frontier. And so his world and his part of the country is like the Old West frontier. And so that's where they're at. And then in the third book, we have Drusilla's book, and this wraps everything. So her husband is like the Roman dude, like in charge, Roman emperor type dude, back in the days with like just the like no pants and abs. So you gotta love it. And it wraps up the series. So you do have to read these in order, but I binged them all in like 2 days. I was into it. This is it. This is not an extremely popular series. It's not one that a lot of people have heard of, but it is so good. They were all 5-star reads for me. I absolutely love them. I think it's almost time to do a reread because it's been a couple years now.
Darn it.
So those are ones that you need to read someday when you can handle reading fantasy some more. Because they're really, because it's not like, you know, when you go into fantasy books, right? And you go like into ACOTAR or whatever, there's all this world building and stuff. Their world, it's easy to picture. And yes, there is world building and you understand a little bit about the world, but you're getting like the best of all the world. You're getting a whole country cowboy from the Wild West, and you're getting the gladiator, and you're getting the king, the medieval king, and you're getting the Viking dude. You're getting it all in one book series.
Okay, my next book series is called The Master Class, and this is by Raven Jane. And each of these books, there's several of them, but they're only about 60 to 100 pages each. So it's kind of more like reading one really big book instead of a whole bunch of small books. But this is about Juliet. Juliet has been raised and trained by her father her entire life to basically be the perfect wife. Her dad is very powerful and wealthy, and so he has set her up to marry another powerful and wealthy man. And she's been pretty isolated most of her life, and she's done like learned foreign languages, learned how to be prim and proper, like literally she has trained to be the perfect wife. When I say that, like this is literally what she has done. And so now it is time for her to be married off. And she's actually like excited and hopeful about this. It's not like more of a mafia where the girls are like, oh my gosh, I do not want to marry this guy. Like this is like her whole life's training. She's excited to finally get to go meet her husband. But she doesn't get to meet him. He wants her to be sent off to get some additional training. And she's a little puzzled by this because she doesn't understand like what additional training she could possibly need. And she's just told like this is a gift from her husband. She needs to go to these classes. So she shows up and it is nothing like what she expects it to be. She is going to be trained by the master, and there's 10 lessons she has to go through, and they're all very sexual in nature, which really stresses her out because she has been told she has to save herself for her husband. And that is not what is going to be happening in these master classes that she is taking. So this is that story. It is really, I've never read anything like it. They were really good, but also in this, like, I can't believe I'm reading this weird, captivating way. So go give that a try if you're up for some hard smut.
Right off the bat, right?
Yeah.
Were they on audio?
I have no idea.
I'm gonna have to look into that.
It was wild.
Yeah. Okay, speaking of wild, that's my next series. My next series is the Midnight Sun series by Lynn Burke. It's a 3-book series. It's a different couple in each book. This is about 3 separate couples in Alaska. And if you've been to our channel at all, and you've heard me talk about Alaska, I am an Alaskan girl, and Alaska has to be done right. Lynn did her research. So the first book is about Jesse and Brock. So Brock is very wealthy. He lives in the lower 48, and I can't remember where, but he lives in the lower 48, and he is like an adrenaline junkie. And something has happened, and he is fleeing the situation, and he just wants to get away. And so he has purchased a cabin in the bush in Alaska, and his plan is just to go to this remote location and live there. And so he gets to Alaska, and he has to find his bush pilot to take him the next morning to where his homestead is. And so the night before they fly out, he still hasn't found his pilot. And so he goes to this bar and he meets Jesse. And he and Jesse hit it off and they have a one night stand. And then the next morning she wakes up and he's not there. And she's like, what the hell? Like, you just left me no note or nothing. And she gets out to where her float plane is, or her plane is, and she realizes that, oh yeah, this is my client. And he's like, oh crap, this is my pilot. And so they have a real love-hate relationship in the beginning, for sure. And he's dependent on her because she's the one who brings his supplies in. She's the one who like makes sure he's alive throughout the year. She's the one who takes his radio calls with his satellite phone and stuff. And so there's other things going on behind the scenes, but this is their story. And then we have Wildling, which is my absolute favorite in the series. These are all dark guys, by the way, so definitely check your trigger warnings. So this is about Sage and Flynn. Sage lives in this little town in Alaska, same town that Brock shows up in. She's wanted to get married. She wants to get out of the town. Her parents are hoarders. She wants to get away from it all. And she's met a guy who is a homesteader that lives out in the bush. And he comes in like twice a year for supplies. And she's met him a couple times. He took her out on a date or two. He's a lot older than her. And she agrees when he comes to town this time. He's like, I'm only here for 2 days, hon. Like, marry me, and she wanting to get out of the town says yes. And so she marries this guy. And she's a virgin at the time, and her wedding night is not what she expected it to be. And then she gets out to the bush and finds out that he has a son who's 18, who is Flynn. Once she gets out there, the guy that he pretended to be in town is not the guy who he is. And that's not how he treats her. So definitely check trigger warnings in this one. She and Flynn start to realize that they're attracted to each other because they're very close in age, and she's not treated very well by her husband. So there's that one. And then the third book is about Rowan and Annie. So Rowan is the son of Sage and Flynn from the second book, and Annie is the daughter from Brock and Jesse. And their kids have been around each other quite a lot growing up. They've liked each other for quite a few years, and this is their story while they're out in the wilderness. Love this series. It is so good. So good.
So my next series is Ashes and Embers by Carrie Ann Cole. And Jessica, I have a little bit of a confession to make. So there are 6 books in this series. I have not read them all because I don't want to live in a world where I've read all of Carrie Ann Cole's books. I just
oh my God, you're killing me. I've read all of them, all of the Ashes and Embers, except for the one that's the reverse age gap. Was it Lucas? Yeah.
Okay. So I am actually going to start binge reading the rest of this series because I do want to finish it. I've read everything by Carrie Ann Cole. I just have not finished this series. So this series is, well, I mean, it's Carrie Ann Cole. So what can I say? So if you've read Torn, you've seen glimpses into this world a little bit. So this is about the rock band Ashes and Embers. And we start off in book 1 is Storm's book. Storm has like a cabin up in the mountains, and we have Evie, who's trying to get to a conference of some sort, and she is trying to follow her like GPS, and she ends up on this mountain, and a blizzard comes in and she gets trapped in her car, and along comes Storm, and he's like, I'll help you. So she gets in his truck and they start driving, and they end up off the road, but at least they're together, right? So they end up spending 48 hours together in this truck. It is important to note that she is in a relationship, but it's not a good one. Like, he's not abusive. He's just kind of like almost checked out. And it's like they're just going through the motions, I guess would be a great way to describe that one. That book is so good. Then we have Vandal. He, according to Carrie Ann Cole herself, she describes him as emotionally damaged and manipulative. And there is some BDSM in it, and she recommends that if that's really not your style, just skip it and go on to the next book. I really liked Vandal. I know some people say it's like not a great book. I still enjoyed it, but again, Carrie Ann Cole could probably write about like a penguin walking across an iceberg, and I would be there for it. Like, I mean, She's just so good. Then we go on to Lucas, which is the reverse age gap where Ivy is 36. Her husband's cheated on her. She's a mother of two. So she's now a divorced mother of two when she meets Lucas, who's only 24. Then we have Talon and Asia. This is the one of them that I need to read. And this is where they like get married in this social experiment and they have to stay married for 6 months and journal everything. I'm very, very excited to read that one. And then the final one is, and then there's another storm one in there. And then the final book is Asher and Ember's story. Mm-hmm. Which again, if you've read Torn, you know, because Asher is Kenzie's dad. And so you know, like, kind of what's going on in this story.
Yeah, that's why I was like, when I got into that series, I was like binging it because I wanted to get to their book, which is why I'm baffled that you have not got that far.
I don't know. It's like, if I cannot find a really good book to read, I know I still have some Carrie Ann Cole books to read.
See, that's like, there's some books out there that are really popular that I know are going to be 5-star reads for me, but I'm not reading them because I'm kind of saving them for when I get into a book slump and I desperately need something that I know is going to pull me out of a book slump.
Yeah.
Same thing. Yeah. So,
but
okay.
I feel confident binging this series now because Carrie Ann Cole has been teasing a lot about her new book that's coming out, which will be like the first book that's come out since Don't Kiss the Bride, which came out in January of 2020, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been 3 years. So
I read it 2 years ago. So yeah.
Oh man.
Yep. All right. So my last series is more of an author. She writes a lot of series and I couldn't choose just one of the series. So I'm going to tell you about my 3 and just the top, because each series is about the same characters throughout the series. So I'm just going to give you a little thing. And that is Tate James. If you have not read Tate James, I don't know. I don't know that we can talk because I don't know. No, I'm kidding. She is a reverse harem author. She writes a lot of reverse harem, but she is the one that got me into reverse harem because I don't get confused in her books. Most authors, a lot of authors, when they write reverse harem, I get confused as to who's who and what's what. And if I have to take notes as to who the main characters are, we have a problem. So Tate James has several series. These are my favorite 3. The first one is her Kit Davenport series. This one is more paranormal than it is contemporary. So this one is about Kit. Obviously, she is a thief. She's known as the Fox. And the government, there's like a group that's kind of after her. And they're shifting, and there's all sorts of things that go on in here, shifters and stuff. And there's things that haven't been discovered yet. And it's a wild, fun ride. I binged it all within like 2 days. And there's like, I think there's 6 or 7, there's 6 books in this series, and I binged it. Hate, the Madison Kate series. Hate is the first book. This is the one that got me into it, into reverse harem and into Tate James. I was like, I have to read everything Tate James. This is about Madison Kate Danvers, and she is on Fright Night, which is the night before Halloween. She goes to a fight. Her favorite MMA fighter is out there at this carnival that's basically been turned into, like a underground fighting rink. And when she's there, some bad things happen. There's some gang stuff. There's some things going on there. And she meets these 3 guys, and one of them puts a key in her pocket. And then a little while later, she gets arrested, and it's because of that key she gets sent to prison, or she's about to get sent to jail. Her dad's like the mayor of the town, and he gets her out of it, but she has to go live with her aunt in Cambodia for like a year. And then when she comes back, them 3 boys have moved into her house because one of them is her new stepbrother. And it goes from there. And she's all pissed off because, they got her in trouble and she wasn't the one that did it. And then we have this one is the Hades series. This is about Hades, who we hear mention of in this series a little bit, but she is the head of one of those gangs, and she is a badass. And this is about her and her men, and it kind of runs along, like we do see some of the Madison Kate people in it. I would recommend reading Madison Kate first, but that's where I started, was with Madison Kate, and then I went to the Kate Davenport series, and then I read the Hades series. So anything Tate James is bingeable. I always binge them. I always wait till they're all out, and then I binge them within a day or 2. Audio comes out typically around that same time too. She always has great audio. So that is all of the series that we have for you guys. hopefully we can do another one of these really soon. I think it was kind of fun to showcase our series. Maybe we'll do a darker one next time, which I think would be really fun. I got lots of dark series out there. So anyhow, thanks for watching.
Make sure to check back on Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays for new videos from us.
And until then, we'll see you guys in the next video.